Hey beginner sewers! Here's one of your first projects you should try if you want to get into sewing. Today we're going to make a pillow, and this is a great way to see some basic sewing techniques. The most important technique in sewing is when you turn a project inside out or you put the pattern sides of the fabric facing each other. Then you do the sewing, and then when you flip it right side out, you have a beautiful seam. And this is what I'm going to show you today. So let's make a pillow. Lay them down so that the right sides of the fabric are facing the inside. I'm using a scrap piece of long fabric, so I'm just going to fold mine. So I'm going to sew 3 sides instead of 4. Take your pins and pin across 2 full sides and down 3/4 of the way on that 3rd side. I usually pin a little X right here so that I can remind myself to stop. If you have 2 pieces of fabric with no fold, you're going to pin across 3 full sides and then down 3/4 of the way on that 4th side. Here's an illustration if you're working with a piece of fabric with a fold. Here's an illustration if you're working with 2 pieces of fabric and you have to sew all 4 sides. Start sewing at the corner where your fold is or where your X starts. Start sewing a little bit and then reverse your stitch. Then sew all the way down. Don't get discouraged if you don't have a sewing machine. You can also do this by hand. When you get close to the end, you're going to stop, take your foot off the pedal, turn the dial towards you on your sewing machine so the needle goes into the fabric. Once the needle is in place, the fabric is not going to shift side to side. You're going to lift up your sewing foot. You're going to rotate your fabric 90 degrees and then put your sewing foot down and you're ready to sew the next side. I'm purposely using light pink fabric and dark thread. I wanted it to be very clear what we're sewing here. Most of the time, sewers are going to pick a thread that matches or complements their fabric. Okay, here I am coming down the 3rd side and I can see that X that I made out of the pins. I'm going to stop when I get there, take out those pins, and I'm going to press the reverse button. By using the reverse at the start and end of each seam, you're really locking in that stitch so it won't unravel. You can see I did all of my sides and I left this little opening. Take a minute to cut off all the loose threads. Time to flip this project inside out. Gently take a pencil or a dowel and push out the corners. Now you can check your seams, you could iron your pillow if you want. Everything looks good to me, so I'm going to start stuffing. My stuffing is literally from a project I did in high school. It was a very weird texture after all these years. I'm not going to tell you how many. Be sure to get yourself some good stuffing. Time to seal up this hole in the side of our pillow. I'm going to start by pushing the stuffing down a little bit and folding the raw edges so that they will be on the inside of my pillow. Squeeze the sides together and put a couple pins in there so it'll stay in place as we sew it shut. Now I'm going to show you a few different ways you can sew up the hole in the side of your project. Ready to sew? If you have any questions on how I threaded my needle, I have a video for you. Go back to my channel and find that easy video. Insert your needle on the inside of that hole. Slowly pull it through and insert it near the same spot to pull it through again. I am staying on the inside of my fabric. Again, I'm using a darker thread with a lighter material so you can see what I'm doing. If I was using a matching thread, I wouldn't be afraid to sew completely through. Or you can keep the thread hidden on the inside like I'm doing here. Now slowly pull it out, and this time when you see this little loop form, you're going to stick your needle through there and pull it so you make a little knot. This second loop right here is not a loop. It's actually the tail to my original piece of thread. So I'm going to cut that off right now. Repeat the insertion of the needle and the needle through that loop one more time and you are ready to sew. I'm going to show you a few different stitches today that you can use to sew up your pillow. The first stitch I'm going to show you is called the running stitch. You're going to take your needle and you're going to insert it through your fabric and pull it out the other end. Then you're going to turn that needle around and you're going to insert it right next to the thread that is pulling out. and push it straight through and pull it out the other side. Continue pushing that needle through and out, trying to keep those stitches as straight as you can. Here's another ankle where you can see that I'm just going in and out and in and out. These are tiny little stitches. I don't think I've ever made them this small, so let me show you another way. For this one, you're going to take your needle and you're going to maneuver it in and out of the fabric just over and over again, up until you feel it catch, down until you feel it catch, and then pull it long. This is going to give you some beautiful medium-sized stitches. You can see the difference here. In that first technique though, you don't have to make them as small as I did. The next stitch I'm going to show you is called the Overcast Stitch. Start by sticking the needle through one side of the fabric, bringing it over and around and sticking it in the same insertion side that you did the first time. Pull it out, bring it around, and stick it back in. And you're going to see that that thread circles around the outside of that fabric. Here's another angle, and you can tell I'm really comfortable with this stitch. It's one of my favorites. And the last stitch I'm going to show you is called the ladder stitch or the invisible stitch. So just like when we made our initial knot and we were using the inside of that fabric, we're going to do that again. We're going to stick our needle on the inside, and then we're going to go directly across and do the same thing on the inside of that other side of that hole. And you're going to just keep going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Your threads are going to resemble a ladder, and when you pull them tight, your fabric's going to come together seamlessly. In here, you can see is the outside of my pillow, and there's no lines poking through. That's why it's called the invisible stitch. Again, if you have matching thread and you want to go all the way through, to each their own, that's fine. I'm just showing you in case you need an invisible stitch at some point in time. It's good to know. I finished up the last of my stitch, and you can see here that there's no thread on the outside of the fabric. It looks beautiful, and all of these stitches will look beautiful in your matching thread and fabric to help you finish your project or to sew a hole in your clothing. The hole is done, so to tie off the end, we're going to put our needle in the inside of the fabric, pull it out till we see that loop, stick our needle through, pull, repeat that again. We like to do it twice to start our project, and we like to do it twice to end it. And the last thing I do sometimes is I cut the needle off, I take the two ends, and I tie a double knot as close to my project as I can. This just helps me feel a little more secure that my thread is not going anywhere. Give it a snip and we are done. So much I want to do and so much I want to share. If this is the first video you're seeing from The Constant Crafter, hello and welcome. Run over to my channel and check out some of my other awesome projects.